Among the most valuable lessons that I learned during my ministerial training is the importance of being a non-anxious presence, especially when I'm with those facing dire circumstances, like a devastating accident, a fatal diagnosis, a sudden and unexpected death of a loved one. Our instinct is to try saying or doing something helpful. But under such circumstances, there's nothing that we can do or say to make the trauma of the moment go away. And attempts to do so only make matters worse. They're in a better place now. This too shall pass. The Lord works in mysterious ways. These can feel like daggers to those who are in the throes of loss and grief. Well-meaning as our intentions might be, what we're really telling them is that we don't want them to feel sad or angry or hurt or whatever difficult emotions they're having. Telling a person diagnosed with a terminal condition, for example, that they ought to remain positive and hopeful is not helpful. If we're not honest with them about what's really happening, about what they know is really happening, then it means they have to go through it alone, which makes the dying all the worse. It's better just to say, I'm sorry, and I can't imagine what you're going through. These statements are honest, and they express what we are feeling without judgment or denial about what the aggrieved are experiencing. It's about them after all, not me, not my discomfort, not my pointless wish to make their pain go away. Whatever else might be true, the pain is real and it's overwhelming, and they have to go through it for as long as it takes. Understanding this is key to being a non-anxious presence. Knowing that we have entered into a traumatic and tragic situation and that there is nothing that we can do or say to make it better. Yet as friends, as family, as a minister, we must and want to be there for those that are going through some of the worst circumstances of their lives. But in doing so, we knowingly enter into a space where we are helpless and vulnerable, becoming what feels like a pointless lump on a log. To be the non-anxious presence that we need to be, however, means accepting that we are helpless and we must resist the urge to do something to ease their pain. It is only then that our presence, paradoxically, becomes meaningful and helpful. A steady, quiet presence who is there if needed, there to listen, there to bear witness to the pain and grief that others are experiencing, showing them that they are not alone, while having said little more than, I'm sorry, I can't imagine what you're going through. I'm even hesitant to say that I'm here if you need me, or let me know if there's anything that I can do, which again suggests that I have the ability to make things better, and it puts the burden on them to reach out to me. That is to make me feel useful and therefore better. But again, it's not about me. A 39-year-old suffers a fatal heart attack. A father and his 2 children are killed by a drunk driver. A man my age is given only months to live after being diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. A woman feeling a little off soon discovers that she'll be dead within weeks. A child drowns. teenager commits suicide, another is killed on a motorcycle, a 6-month-old baby falls off the bed and breaks its neck. These are some of the worst circumstances that I've been present for as a minister. And though they were never about me, there is a cumulative impact of being in the midst of such pain and grief that lingers with me. It shapes me. It becomes part of my life experience. As a minister, I've also tried to remain a non-anxious presence for our congregation as a whole. Talk about cumulative impacts. There were 14 deaths in our church during my first year here, to my first week as your minister. They were due to age, in some cases, illnesses, accidents. It's felt similar just these past couple of years, as so many of our matriarchs and patriarchs have left us, sometimes only within days or weeks apart. And that much death takes a terrible toll on our community. We faced other difficulties together, the election of Donald Trump in 2016, a major church conflict in 2019, and the return of Trump in 2024. And through it all, I've worked to remain a non-anxious presence, even though inwardly I have felt much anxiety over these events, as much as anyone else, more in some cases. The secret to this, as the saying goes, is to accept the things I cannot change. I cannot heal the sick, I cannot raise the dead, I cannot go back in time and prevent tragedies, nor can I fix the emotions of others, even though this isn't as obvious to us as our inability to perform miracles and go back in time. A lot of us think we can fix the emotions of others. So in addition to accepting the things I cannot change, we must face the circumstances and challenges before us. We cannot change who the president is, no matter how much we disagree with his actions or policies, nor how much they are impacting our lives and the lives of others. We cannot force the Congress, the Senate, the Supreme Court to uphold the Constitution that they are sworn to defend. We cannot avoid the chaos that this administration is causing in our country and around the world. We cannot know when or even if it will end, nor what damage will be in the aftermath of this socio-political storm we find ourselves in. Yet this is the collective trauma of our time, especially as liberals, as it feels as if our democracy itself has been in a terrible accident, is now in critical condition, and we don't know if it will live or die. Many of us are in shock, fearful of the worst, and already grieving the loss of the society that we once believed would always be with us. My advice is, again, to let those feelings be. Lean into them. They will come and go, and they will come and go again and again. Trying to control our feelings is like standing on the ocean shore and trying not to get wet. The waves move in and out of their own accord. They wash over us, overwhelm us. They recede in time before returning again. Better to accept them knowing only that they will eventually subside with the changing of the tide. Among the most surprising emotions for those in grief are the waves of joy and laughter that sometimes come in the midst of terrible circumstances, or sometimes having no feelings at all, feeling as if everything is entirely normal. And this confusing sensation can compound the situation with additional feelings of guilt. How can I feel happy? How can I feel nothing at all at a time like this? The same is true for us as a society, especially again for the liberal-minded who greatly value the principles upon which our democracy is founded, imperfect a union as it has always been. For much of the time since first announcing his candidacy in 2015, Donald Trump has been the main headline in our lives, almost daily. It's as if we've been stuck in an unending reality show whose star is working to create as much upheaval, suffering, and chaos as possible. After 11 years of it, we're extremely fatigued by the barrage of daily disturbing headlines. We can try avoiding them for a while, but we can't really escape the reality that we're in. Eventually, we have to face what's happening. We have to acknowledge this isn't just a show. When we do, when we are better able to allow the difficult emotions to come and go, while also continuing to live and to do what we must, sometimes feeling like everything is completely normal. Again, we can't control which emotions come over us, nor do much to change the reality that we're in. But we can control our response to those emotions and how we react to our circumstances. Anger doesn't mean that we have to lash out at others. Grief doesn't mean we have to disappear into depression. Facing reality doesn't mean that we have to simply accept the way things are, that we can't make things better. We can control our attitude to some extent. We can control our actions and our reactions regardless of what we're feeling. We can do what we can to support our loved ones and our friends and to serve the grander purposes of our community, society, and of life itself. Rather than protesting against what we dislike, we can demonstrate those values that we do believe in. When someone loses control, we might want to tell them to get a grip. We sometimes do. What I'm saying here is that to get a grip, we need to let go. But letting go does not mean giving up. Quite the opposite. It means facing what is before us, going through it, standing strong, and moving forward as best we can. The American bison, often called buffalo, are a magnificent example. These powerful creatures with enormous heads and broad shoulders have bodies, if you've ever noticed, that almost taper off into nothing compared to all that size and all that force up front. It's as if they were built only to face life head on. In fact, it's well known that instead of turning away from storms, especially powerful blizzards, buffalo head directly into them, knowing that by doing so, they're going to get through them a lot faster than trying to avoid them. This, again, is what it means to be a non-anxious presence, accepting the things that we cannot change and facing the circumstances, the challenges, the realities that we're in. This practice of getting a grip by letting go, of moving into the storm instead of away from it, of facing reality and accepting what we cannot change, is also central to most of humanity's religions. Among Judaism's 10 Commandments, for example, is the command to remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, your son or your daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor the foreigner residing in your town. And the Hebrew word Sabbat simply means to rest. Everybody, everything Every creature needs to rest. This is holy. This is sacred. In February, I'll be taking a month-long sabbatical, which obviously comes from this very word, Sabbat. Some have asked me, what are you going to do? Where are you going to go? I'm not going anywhere, and I'm doing nothing. Because that's what a sabbatical is for. Which is why I prefer to rest, like the earth itself at that time, in the coldness and darkness of the months. In Taoism, Wu Wei, which means doing nothing, is similar to Sabbat, sitting quietly, doing nothing. Spring comes and the grass grows by itself, an old Chinese proverb goes. In fact, the Chinese pictograph for busy is symbolized by two characters meaning heart and killing. Busy is heart killing. But practice not doing, practice Wu Wei, and everything will fall into place, the Tao Te Ching tells us. Fill your bowl to the brim and it will spill. Keep sharpening your knife and it will blunt. Tao never acts, yet nothing is left undone. The Christian idea of grace is another example of this principle. The notion that there's nothing that we can do or need to do to be saved. Look at the birds of the air, Jesus is reported to have said. Consider the lilies of the field. The birds do not sow, harvest, or store away, yet they are fed. The flowers do not toil or spin, yet they are clothed. Yet even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. There are other examples, including ancient myths about the necessity of winter, those cold, dark months when even the earth rests, and our need to rest along with her. But I most prefer the way the principle is treated by the Stoic philosophers. The ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus began his handbook with a simple sentence. Of all existing things, some are in our power, and others are not in our power. This seemingly simple statement is what is referred to as the dichotomy of control, which may again seem obvious, but what isn't obvious is knowing the difference between what is within our power and what is not within our power. Acknowledging this dichotomy then requires us to try to distinguish the difference, because too often we tend to obsess about the things that we can't change and ignore the things that we can. This is a significant point because it can mean the difference between being an anxious or a non-anxious presence, not only in the lives of others, but in our own lives. It doesn't make a lot of sense worrying about matters that we can't do anything about, especially when such worry detracts us from changing the things we can, addressing the things we can. I'm sure you're familiar, maybe you don't realize it or not, it was Loren Eiseley's famous anecdote from his 1969 essay, The Star Thrower. You probably heard this, I'm sure. An old man is walking on the beach when he notices a boy throwing washed-up starfish back into the sea before they get dried up by the hot sun. But the beach goes on for miles and miles, he tells the child. There are thousands of starfish here. You'll never be able to make a difference. I made a difference to that one, the child says. If we only notice all that overwhelms us and is out of our control, then we miss our opportunities to make a difference when we can and where we can. We all know, of course, the serenity prayer attributed to theologian Richard Niebuhr. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. This is a favorite saying in AA and among the Stoics because it addresses the dichotomy of control that all of us must face. But the real trick, again, is knowing the difference. The old man on the beach doesn't understand that not having the power to save all the starfish on the beach doesn't prevent him from saving some. The boy, on the other hand, only sees what he can do. The thought of saving all the starfish never crosses his mind because that's not in his power to begin with. It's not a factor. Contemporary Stoic philosopher William Irvine compounds the problem by reminding us that it's not really just a dichotomy of control, it's a trichotomy of control. For, as he says, there are things over which we have complete control, things over which we have no control at all, and things over which we have some but not complete control. We have no control over who wins an election. We have complete control over who we vote for. So there's no sense worrying about either of those. No sense worrying about the things we have no control over, nor the things we have complete control over. Let go of what we can't control and do what we are able. What we ought to most concentrate on, our energy on rather, are those matters that we have some, but not complete control over. Again, we cannot control who gets elected, but we can volunteer for a particular candidate or participate in public awareness or get out the vote campaigns. The goal of the Stoics, Irvine says, was not to change the world, but to do their best to change the world. And I'm going to compound Epictetus's original dichotomy and the trichotomy, Irvine's trichotomy of control, by further adding a fourth component. There are some things in our power to control that we should not control. Namely, the emotions and the thoughts and the decisions of others. And this is to say that we should not force our wills upon other people. Why? Because from our humanistic position as liberals, it's unethical, using others as a means to our ends, rather than respecting their freedom and their autonomy as individuals, and to have the right to choose their own ends and their own purposes is unethical. And this goes back to where we began, being a non-anxious presence. If we respect others, we have no need to change or control their emotions, nor to prevent them from facing the storm that they must walk through. What is within our power, and thus in our arena of responsibility, is to simply be present with them, even if it is only to bear witness to what they are going through so that they know they are not alone. To be a non-anxious presence in an anxious world is not to be passive and indifferent. It is to stand steady in the storm, neither denying its power nor being overpowered by it. It is to face what is real, to do what we can, and to let the rest go.